All right, welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Glad to be back.
I'm always fascinated by kind of the intersection of pop culture and like bigger social issues, and we've got a pretty juicy one today.
Yeah, looks like it.
So Kanye West, right, made some pretty bold comments recently.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he kind of tied his creative genius to autism, and it's gotten some people riled up.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, the guy's incredibly talented, but kind of gets into this tricky territory, right? Like, are we perpetuating stereotypes, or is he just, expressing himself?
Complicated for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to look at his actual statements, some reactions from, autism advocacy groups, and I think we found some interesting research on this whole idea of neurodiversity too.
Sounds like a good plan.
So yeah, let's dive in. Okay, so Kanye West straight up said, "I wouldn't be Kanye West, the greatest artist of all time." He really said that if I didn't have some form of autism.
Wow.
What'd you make of that when you first saw it?
Well, I mean, it's definitely provocative, right? He's not shying away from making a bold statement.
No, he's not.
And I think the first thing that jumps out is, he's not actually disclosing a formal diagnosis here, right?
Right.
It's one thing to speculate about your own neurology, and it's another to claim something that you haven't actually been, officially evaluated for.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to be fair to him, like, there's a growing awareness of autism, and it seems like diagnoses are on the rise.
Absolutely. In fact, the CDC now estimates that about 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism.
That's a huge number.
Yeah, it's a significant increase from just a few decades ago. And so it kind of creates this backdrop for Kanye's comments, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're still, as a society, kind of figuring out what autism is, how
Yeah.
to support it, and how it interacts with things like, creativity and all that.
And it's so complex too, right? It's
Yeah.
not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly. That's what's so crucial to remember. Autism is a spectrum, not a single box to check.
Mm.
And I think that's where Kanye's statement, might miss the mark a bit.
How so?
Well, by reducing it to a source of genius, even if he has good intentions, right, it can really oversimplify the diverse experiences within the autistic community.
Right.
I mean, some individuals might have exceptional skills in certain areas, but others might face, significant challenges, and we can't just lump everyone together.
That's that whole savant stereotype that we've seen, in movies and stuff.
Right, exactly. It's this idea that all autistic people are secret geniuses, which, it can be damaging because it sets up these unrealistic expectations.
And I imagine it's frustrating for people who are actually, living with autism and dealing with the day-to-day realities.
Absolutely. It can feel like their struggles are being ignored or minimized in favor of this, romanticized image of genius.
It's like the magical disabled person trope you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and you see it pop up all the time in media,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, this character has a disability, but they also have this incredible superpower. And it's meant to be inspiring, but it can also be really reductive.
Yeah, because it kind of implies that the only way to be valuable as a disabled person is to have some extraordinary talent.
Exactly. And it also kind of avoids the messy reality of disability, right? The
Yeah.
fact that it can be challenging and require support and accommodation.
It's not always about being the next Mozart or Einstein.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what some of the autism advocacy groups were reacting to with Kanye's statement.
Yeah, it seemed like they were pretty upset.
Yeah, there was a lot of criticism, and I think it's understandable because when a figure like Kanye with his massive platform, right, makes these kinds of pronouncements,
It can really shape public perception.
absolutely, he has millions of followers, and so what he says carries weight, and in this case, I think a lot of people felt like he was perpetuating stereotypes and overshadowing the challenges that many autistic individuals and their families face.
Right, and it kind of takes the focus away from the need for real support and resources for autistic individuals.
Exactly. We need to be talking about access to education, healthcare, job opportunities.
Right, not just focusing on, exceptional abilities.
Right.
So, okay, I get that Kanye's statement maybe wasn't the most nuanced take, but I think it does raise an interesting question.
Yeah, what's that?
Like, where do we draw the line between personal expression and responsibility when it comes to public figures talking about sensitive topics?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Especially when it relates to things like identity and neurodiversity.
I mean, this isn't just about Kanye, right? Think about other celebrities who have spoken about mental health or neurodiversity.
Right.
Sometimes it sparks important dialogue, but other times it can spread misinformation or harmful stereotypes.
It's a tightrope walk for sure.
It is.
And this whole thing kind of brings us to that idea of neurodiversity, right? Can you maybe expand on that a little bit for our listener?
Sure. So neurodiversity is basically the idea that neurological differences like autism, ADHD, dyslexia,
Right.
these aren't defects, but natural variations in the human brain.
It's kind of shifting the paradigm. Right.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
moving away from this fix-it mentality and embracing the unique strengths and challenges that come with different ways of thinking and experiencing the world.
It's like shifting the focus from what's wrong with you to what's right with you.
Yeah, and how can we build a world that supports all these different ways of
I
being?
love that.
And that requires open, honest, respectful conversations, right?
Totally.
We need to talk about the systemic barriers that neurodivergent individuals face while also celebrating their contributions and challenging assumptions about what normal even means.
It's all about creating a more inclusive society.
Right.
So just to kind of recap for our listener today, we explored Kanye West's statement, linking his genius to autism.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the potential harm of oversimplification and stereotypes.
Mm.
And we touched on the importance of neurodiversity and the responsibility of public figures when talking about these complex issues.
A lot to unpack there.
A lot to unpack. And it's something that I think we as a society are still grappling with.
I think so too.
So any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the big question that Kanye's statement raises is how can we encourage open dialogue about these complex issues while ensuring sensitivity and respect for all individuals?
That's something for all of us to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
Yes, see you then.
All right, take care.